This week on MotoMan, I take a fancy baby buggy to its spiritual home. Fancy SUVs. Their sales brochures suggest rock climbing in the mountains to drifting in the desert. The reality is, they end up in the hands of soccer moms in front of fancy shopping malls. Now, we have the new Infiniti QX56, so I think it's high time to find out if this fancy SUV can live up to the promise of its sales brochure. Let's be honest, fancy SUVs never go off-road. And that's unfortunate, because they're designed to do a whole lot more. Let's see what else we can find to do with this fancy SUV. In order to demonstrate whether or not this fancy SUV can go off-road, and when I say off-road, I mean really off-road, not just down a dirt lane to some polo club, let's go over the fine SUV guide to four-wheeling. Let's begin. Lesson 1. It's all about finesse. You would never want to scratch the multi-layer paint, or heavens, get dust in the fancy interior. Lesson number 2, it's all about suspension travel. I just happen to have 2 ditches here to demonstrate this little lesson. But let's not forget lesson number 1, finesse. So let's let the wheels kind of soak into the ditch. We got ditch 1 and ditch 2. Okay, let's get out. Check out how far our suspension has extended itself. Here's a great example of lesson number 2, suspension travel. In a twist ditch, suspension is fully extended. And a little footnote on the fine SUV guide to four-wheeling. Never be afraid to get your hands dirty. Now, in combining lesson 1 and 2, finesse and suspension travel, let's get out of these ditches. Just a little bit of gas. Get out of 1. Get out of 2. And we did it! Lesson number 3. Ascent does not equal speed. It's more a common sense thing. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, you want to go up a steep grade. It's not about gunning the gas. It's about letting the car bite, letting it find its way, and just helping it along. It really is a restatement of lesson number 1, finesse. So here's an interesting concept. The Infiniti people have taken the basic idea of hydraulic brakes and applied it to the suspension. In short, this is how it works. There's a fancy computer that's connected to a reservoir that holds hydraulic fluid, brake fluid to you and I, that in turn sends fluid from the left or the right side of the vehicle depending on whether you want to drive like a soccer mom or Skip Barber. Now here's the thing, at 6,000 pounds, it kind of works. Take for example this turn. It's a direct copy from one at Sears Point up in California, and it's one of these declining radius turns. I get to the point where it bites, total composure. 6,000 pounds. Defies the laws of physics. Lesson number 4, ground clearance. This is extremely important when you're talking about a fine SUV. The main thing here is you do not want to expose your investment to the elements. And once again, as with other lessons, it's a combination of all of them. And lesson number 5, probably the most important of all fine SUV lessons. When driving a fine SUV, it's always better to drive somebody else's. Okay, that completes our lesson of the fine SUV guide to four-wheeling. Now, let's go have some fun. Oh, one thing I almost forgot, there are places where speed is indeed appropriate, especially when you want to get your drift on. Okay, so four-wheeling, a lot of fun. But if you got a high-speed oval at your disposal, you gotta use it. What have we learned today? Well, number 1, this fancy SUV can definitely go off-road. And number 2, always bring a sports car to a track. From twist ditches to dirt moguls to my favorite, making a 6,000-pound truck fly, I've proven that this fancy SUV is indeed the real thing. So now, here's my challenge to you SUV owners. Instead of taking the kids this year to Santa Barbara or East Hampton, let's try something new. Saddle them up and do what your SUV was intended for. Go off-road. Pretty soon Scotty's gonna pipe in. That's all I can give. That was a very Indian sounding Scotty, wasn't it? How about trying something new? Maybe Moab, or even the Blue Ridge Mountains. Whatever it is, take it off-road. I might as well say don't start forest fire. 6,000 pounds through here, even more difficult. I feel like the effects of gravity as I'm trying to get into orbit. Isn't there a sports car around here I could drive? Forget about an iPhone. I need my own track. I'd like to point out that Mike Betts, about halfway through our laps on this marketability course, said, "Oh no, I need to get out because my stomach is feeling a little queasy."
Lies, all lies.
He's a grandfather. He can't drive like this anymore.